Hello and welcome to another video. Before we begin, I just want to say that the next 7 or 8 videos that I post are going to be very special to me. And here's why. I moved to Albania with my girlfriend Fee in November 2019, about a year and a half ago. And I haven't seen any family since. My parents had plans to visit me here in Albania in 2020, but obviously because of COVID, the plans were postponed over and over again. Well, finally, after over a year of pushing back their visit, they finally made it to Albania for a 2-week trip just in time for summer. When Fee and I heard that they'd finally visit, we designed the perfect 2-week itinerary for them to experience the highlights of Albania. If you like this itinerary and you're thinking about visiting Albania, I'd recommend you check out our tour business called Journey Albania, which will officially launch in August. Okay, so let's begin with part 1 of this 2-week adventure around Albania. After my parents spent their first night in Tirana, we began our trip by driving up north. We were headed to Theth, a beautiful and peaceful village about 5 hours north of Tirana. Since we wanted my parents to visit their first Albanian castle on the way, we made a quick stop at Rozafa Castle in Shkodra. I've already made a few videos in Shkodra, so you can check out those videos on my channel if you're interested in this city and Rozafa Castle. But the castle is definitely worth a visit. You can go to hear about the legend of Rozafa and also get a beautiful view from the castle overlooking Shkodra. Anyways, after a very quick visit, it was time to get to the village of Theth. The road to Theth is, it's quite bumpy. Actually, it used to be much more dangerous and scary about 3 years ago, but they have been working on paving and widening the road since. That being said, there is still about a 20-kilometer section that is unpaved. It's much safer than it used to be, but still I'd recommend at least an SUV because of the bumps. Or even better, you can hire a driver to take you from Shkodra, which is not only safer but also completely necessary if you're doing the hike across to Valbona, as we will in the next video. As you can see, there was still a good amount of snow during the drive, despite it being June, and this is why it's only possible to drive to Theth during the summer season. The views along this drive are really beautiful, especially as you begin dipping down into Theth Valley. Eventually we arrived. There are a ton of nice guest houses in Theth, and this one we stayed at is called Butina Mitsia. This guest house actually just opened a couple years ago, but they've already proven to have really great hospitality, fresh food, friendly owners, and the best part, their beautiful suites which have amazing views of the Albanian Alps. It's definitely the perfect place to spend a long, peaceful weekend away from the city. Alright, so let's show you what you can do when visiting the beautiful village of Theth. I'm actually here with Fee and her family, and my parents came from the US last night, so within 24 hours we've already made it to what I think is one of the most beautiful places in Albania. We will be in Theth for 2 nights, so we'll show you around the village and also go hike to the Blue Eye tomorrow. I'm honestly so psyched to be here because this has been my favorite place in Albania for so long. Going to the beaches is really beautiful as well, but I think coming up to this valley and staying in Theth around the Albanian Alps is just a whole nother experience. So first, I'd recommend just taking some time to wander around the village. Take a walk to the Tower of Nicol Koceku, otherwise known as the Defense Tower or the Lock-in Tower. If you're interested in the history of the northern highlands of Albania, this is a must visit. Here you can pay just €1 to have Sokol, a descendant of the Koceku family, give you the history of the tower and explain the set of laws governing this area at the time. Back in the day, this code of laws was called the Kanun. Historically, the tower was used both as a prison for those who had been accused of violating the Kanun, as well as a sort of place of mediation and reconciliation for the families of the offender and the offended. Here, Fee translates Sokol as he tells us a bit about the tower and its historical significance, as well as about the Kanun. I'll just show you the first few minutes, but it was really interesting and worth going to hear about.
We will tell the story of this tower. Ka 4 shekuj që është ndërtuar si kull.
4 centuries that it has been built as a tower.
Ka funksionu për 3 shekuj për pajtime.
For 3 of the centuries it has worked to bring the people together, the ones from the blood feuds.
Ka 1 shekull që nuk funksionon sepse kanuni I lek Dugaxhinit nuk ekziston tjetër.
But it's been a century that it hasn't been working because the Kanun of Lek Dugaxhini that I told you, the book, it's illegal now for the last 100 years, so it doesn't work.
Fjala kanun vjen nga fjala latinisht ligj dhe është shtyr nga bota kushtetut për kohën e kaluar.
The word Kanun, that is called Kanun of Lek Dugaxhin, comes from the word constitution, and it's known as an unwritten constitution from back then.
Por lind pyetja pse quhet kull ngujimit kur është kull pajtimit.
But the question arises, like, why is it called Kunguimi? Is like a cool of like the hiding, when it's actually a cool of like forgiveness, like bringing people together.
The tower also has extremely tiny windows, and as you can imagine, this was for protection and defense. After Sokol explained the history of the tower, he played us some music using only a blade of grass. We then left the lock-in tower after a really informative experience. Afterwards, you can make your way to the Church of Theth, which was built back in 1892. I absolutely love it here in Theth. Theth is unlike any place that I visited, and I think it's incredibly peaceful here. Now the next day, it was time to visit Syri Kalter, or the Blue Eye of Theth. The most common way to get to Blue Eye is to drive from Theth village to a starting point and then take about an hour to an hour and a half hike. However, some people do hike all the way from Theth village instead, which might take about 3 to 3.5 hours one way.
Good morning. We just finished an amazing breakfast at Wikina Museum.
Now we're on a drive to Syri Kalter, which is the Blue Eye of Theth. How's your second day in Albania?
Guess what?
How are you enjoying Albania so
It's
far?
outstanding.
Honestly, although I would recommend the drive, it's really not for the faint-hearted. I would definitely recommend you arrange a driver with your guest house since they have a lot of experience driving these roads. It's about a 30 to 40 minute drive to the beginning of the hike, but the road is unpaved and on a pretty steep ledge for the majority of the time. I'm not trying to scare you, it's actually really beautiful, but just for those who are scared of heights, it's probably good to sit on the inside seat. The driver will drop you off at restaurant Lulash Zelna, where you'll start the hike. The hike is not too difficult, at least compared to the long hike we'll do the next day. It's about a 1 hour hike from here, so we'll do the hike, hopefully do some swimming there, and then head back for lunch in this nice restaurant by this nice little river. Welcome to Blue Eye. Now, if you're lucky, you'll arrive at the Blue Eye when it's relatively empty, like we did here. Not too many people swim at this Blue Eye, even in June, and that is because the water is quite freezing, actually. Most people just sit at this little makeshift outdoor cafe and have a drink or just hang out around the Blue Eye and relax. Anyways, we eventually hiked back and sat for lunch at this restaurant beside the river before heading back to Theth village. Fee and her family had to drive back to Tirana, whereas my parents and I were staying one more night in Theth before continuing our trip to the north by hiking to Valbona. As always, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'd encourage you to definitely visit Theth and check out some of the places which we visited in this video. In the next video, my parents and I will do the long and beautiful hike from Theth to Valbona, and there was way more snow than we expected. Hopefully I'll have that video up in just a few days. Okay, see you soon, bye.